Hey everyone, welcome to Off the Mat, a podcast about two women's experience in jiu-jitsu and how that translates into our lives off the mat. I'm Justine, a bit of a renegade, outdoor enthusiast, and a white belt in jiu-jitsu.
And I'm Karina, a full-time student, creative artist, and also a white belt on my way to becoming a black belt.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Off the Mat, episode 12.
Welcome. Happy to have every single person listening.
So today is, I feel like we say this every time.
It's a special day.
It's a special episode.
Our lives are special, guys.
Yeah. The world revolves around us.
Basically.
Pretty much, yeah. But I do think this is a special episode because, at least for the foreseeable future, this is going to be our last episode of Off the Mat. So
That's a bomb. You're just going to lay it on them like that?
Yeah. We'll give some context as we go into things, but both Karina and I are going to be changing up some things in our lives, going on some exciting adventures, and for a number of reasons, it is going to be very logistically challenging for us to continue recording at this time, largely due to the fact that we aren't going to be in the same physical space. So we'll start with Karina, who can tell us a bit about what her plans are that are taking her away from Gainesville in the near future. And all of this for us is exciting, so even though we're sad to be saying goodbye to this podcast for now, everything is still going to be available, the episodes, our Instagram page, and we'll update them occasionally as we do jiu-jitsu related things that we want to share, but the weekly or bi-weekly episodes will no longer be published.
Right. So firstly, I am immensely grateful that jiu-jitsu has brought me Justine, and that we get to share this space with each other, almost weekly, bi-weekly. And like she said, we are sad that this is ending. This has been such a unique hobby that we were able to pursue and kind of delve into and learn something new about. And
We learned a lot
from the beginning, researching. I mean, at one point it was just an idea, right?
Yeah.
So even just seeing the evolution of that.
I think an idea at a bar.
Yes.
I think we were at a bar and we came up with the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also we would be remiss if we didn't give a huge shout out to your boyfriend for all of his assistance over these months, and especially getting things going in the beginning.
I think a shout out is definitely
in order.
We wouldn't have made it without you. I know you're listening, but this has been such a learning experience, but a fun one nonetheless. So now we're kind of in these crossroads where we have some future endeavors coming up that we're going to pursue. So me personally, I will be graduating college in a year. So I just finished up my junior year, and I am majoring in business administration. So my future is at this point undetermined, but I know that I'd like to go into something business administration related. So ultimately being a businesswoman, I think, is something that I want to achieve and that I will achieve. So that brings me to what I will be doing this upcoming fall. So I'm going to be leaving Gainesville end of this summer, and I'm going to be studying abroad in London. So United Kingdom, Europe, that will be my first time outside of the country other than a cruise that went to Mexico. I will also be independently traveling, I will be independently living, and I will also be studying. On top of that, I'm going to have an internship in London at some organization that I get paired with. So all of those things are kind of just super, super exciting to me, and another new thing that I've never experienced before. And that's kind of, my things that are upcoming shortly. And I know you've got things upcoming shortly too, as we both know Gainesville was not going to be our forever home.
Yeah, I mean, I never expected Florida as a state even to be sorry, people from Florida, to be my forever home. But I'm also leaving Gainesville. I'll be returning to Chicago for the month of July. I'm actually so excited about it because I'm going to be attending, in the last episode we talked about it, I believe, this all-women's jiu-jitsu camp. Meg is going to be there as well. It's a 3-day weekend. You get to learn from these female black belts and just be with around 250 women who train in jiu-jitsu,
it's a
which
good amount.
is a lot more than like the 2 or 3 that we train with in our classes.
Mm-hmm.
And following that, I'll be returning to Florida for a couple months, but I'll be living in Jacksonville. And my plan is to be there until around March of next year, and then hopefully we'll begin a very long hike on the Appalachian Trail, which should take a couple of months.
A several-month-long hike, everybody, just so
from
you know.
Georgia to Maine. And so, obviously, because of this, you can see that Karina and I are going to be in very different areas over the next few months.
Mm-hmm.
And we made the difficult decision that, for the time being, due to that logistical challenge, we're going to put a pause on the podcast. And so I think today, how we really wanted to wrap things up is just kind of going through the past 10 months, the things that we have gained from our time on the mat, how it has, as we say in our introduction, how it's translated into our lives off the mat,
Mm-hmm.
and where we're going in the future with jiu-jitsu. And at least for me, I've already been looking up a couple of gyms in Jacksonville that I hope to continue training at when I'm living there, just because I know it's a really nice and easy way to form friendships, to form different senses of community, especially going to a new place. And I think that's one of the very unique things about jiu-jitsu, is it's something that you can plug into wherever you go.
Yeah.
And I feel a bit more comfortable plugging in because I have some experience under my belt. I'm not going in as this brand new person who doesn't know what they're doing. I can show up on the mat and, you know, I'm still a white belt, but show some competence in my ability to execute moves. And I know once we talked about like how we finally feel like we're getting it more when the coaches show something, that we can actually replicate it without having to call them over every time for additional help.
That was a good moment.
That's a good moment, yeah. And so, I think we just wanted to take this last episode to just explore some of those things and what it all means to us.
Yeah, well, I know that this was something that we both started that wasn't necessarily something we were like, I'm going to do in my life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, both of us being extremely happy that we've done it, I also do want to continue it. So, I've searched up several gyms in the London area as well. Of course, that's a completely different area, so I'm not exactly going to know how it goes until I get there. But I like, because you mentioned to me the other day that that's the best way to meet the locals.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you're so right. And for me, when I'm trying to go over there and I'm trying to network and I'm trying to experience and make friends and, you know, be embedded in the culture, I feel like that's going to be a great way for me to get that.
Absolutely.
And then also going in there not looking like an idiot will be just the cherry on top of the cake, you know?
Yeah, and I think something cool we could mention is that Karina and I actually had another testing date at our gym.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so we both are now 2-stripe white belts.
We
so
are.
that's pretty exciting. A lot of sweat and tears and bruises went into earning those 2 little pieces of tape.
Yeah.
But
they mean a lot. 2 stripes on a white belt means so much more than anybody would know.
I know. It's like you really want that piece of tape. But it was a similar testing day where we rolled for an hour, and I think we've gotten a lot better at the flow roll.
Yes.
So it wasn't as arduous, although of course you're still pretty exhausted and sweaty and beat up by the
Yeah.
end.
Well, I guess as, you know, we are kind of looking back on our entire experience as a jiu-jitsu athlete, being able to get better in your roles and getting better in your roles has been something that's been so crazy awesome. Because I remember vividly when we were on the mat first couple weeks and they're like, okay, roll, like bump and slap, and like I don't know how else to explain it, but like you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, you have no clue.
Like you're being grabbed, you're just like trying to fight for your life, like trying, but you don't know anything.
Yeah.
And to now go on the mat and be like, I actually have learned so many things that I can use, and then be in a situation and be like, oh shit, I remembered if his leg is there, I can do this, blah, 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 blah. And we just keep adding to our list of, I remembered that. And things clicking faster, that's been so amazing.
Well, and I've been having kind of a cool experience in my classes where our coach has occasionally been pairing me up with people who are pretty new to jiu-jitsu. And I mean, I take it as a little bit of a vote of confidence in me that I'm not going to hurt this person, and that like I'm a good person to roll with. But it's really neat to also be in a position that I was once on the receiving end of teaching.
Yes.
You know, and giving like feedback and instructing a little bit. Obviously, my knowledge base is pretty minute, but compared to someone who's only been practicing for 1 or 2 months, to them it seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it was really funny. This kid who I rolled with this past week, he was matched up with me. He just came up to me before I rolled. He's like, "I'm so gonna lose this fight."
Oh no, you're kidding!
I just burst out laughing. I was like, "Probably, but you got some weight on me, so."
That's the best thing that you would ever want to hear.
And I was like, "Yeah, you are gonna lose this fight." You know?
Yeah.
So it was pretty.
No, we went from student to teacher, or maybe not. Maybe like student to teaching assistant.
We're like student. Yeah, I think we can fluctuate between the roles depending on who we're with. But I sometimes think back to like those like you said, those very first classes, and we actually accomplished quite a lot in this period of time. Like if you think about it, like we do have 2 stripes that represent in an official way our increased ability and skill. But we also competed in a major IBJJF competition and put on like a decent performance for people as new as we are to the sport. And, you know, we have shown up consistently for training, and even with our diverging schedules where we were no longer training together, and, you know, maybe some of that push of accountability shifted more onto us as individuals because it was no longer something that we were consistently doing together.
Yeah.
But still, just going through that whole experience and showing up at this point where we are, I feel very proud about all that we've done in the last 10 months.
Well, consistency was one of the things that I thought of at the top of my head of kind of what I learned or what has been honed in on throughout these past months, because from the start it was 2 days a week, and as soon as we learned that we could do the 3rd day, we did do the 3rd day. And then from that we were doing competition training for 6 weeks. So, and then actually competing and going to somewhere completely foreign and actually like having a good time and learning from it and seeing such an improvement from that, you know? So you've kind of seen from training a little bit, training a whole bunch, training with somebody else, training by yourself, on kind of how we can test ourselves and push ourselves in different ways.
Yeah, and I think jiu-jitsu, at least for me, was the first athletic endeavor I did that was really a whole body workout. And I think at this point I'm probably the most like fit physically that I've ever been in my entire life. And I credit a lot of that to jiu-jitsu, that I started using muscles that, I mean, I don't know about you, but those first 2 months I was sore as hell after every class. And now I have bruises and things like that, but I think my muscles are like used to the strenuous nature of the training. And I mean, I just, you know, a lot of gyms market their classes like, this is great for weight loss, and this is great for that. And I don't know if I've lost weight training in jiu-jitsu, but I definitely learned a lot about how to make my body stronger, and it's in the back of my mind when I'm doing different physical endeavors, whether it's yoga or running or rock climbing, whatever it might be, that I'm like, oh yeah, this will be pretty good for jiu-jitsu. Yeah, like I'm going to show up better on the mat because I'm doing this today.
Yeah, like we feel fit. I feel biologically fit too, you know, like survival stance, like I know that I can tussle for several minutes on end. I know that I can withstand being close to death for several minutes, you know, when in that magic.
It's like mentally fit.
Right.
Yeah.
Mentally fit for sure. Yeah. That is no joke when you're holding on to a choke. And that is what's given me something new too, which is like a newfound confidence in my body and the way that it performs. And I will rave on it. I will rave on it every single day until I can't anymore. But in the gym, just the things that I do differently, because I legit do know how to move my body differently and more effectively, and the effectiveness makes such a difference in everything else that I do.
Yeah, I think I think both of those are huge, like the physical and the mental fitness. And I think our mental fitness was really pushed to the zenith when, we had to compete at Pans.
Oh, I was going to say Robert Drysdale seminar. That was pretty tough.
Well, that whole experience, this whole 6
was right
weeks,
before
I
competing,
think
right?
that kind of pushed our mental capacity to another level to really go beyond kind of that flight or fight response and just have that mental strength and control to show up. And I remember that was one of our main takeaways from the competitions, that we both were able to show up and have our minds under control. And yeah, I think both of those are invaluable. And I think for me, when I reflect on this time as well, like obviously we became good friends through jiu-jitsu. Like that's literally probably the only context in which we would have met each other. Yeah, given like our lives, And I think too now to a lot of my friends here in Gainesville over the past year, and many of them are related to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And so I think it's also just kind of cool because a lot of people nowadays, they struggle to make friendships, right? Especially as you get older.
The digital age.
You can find so many articles about adults like having a hard time making friends and whatever. And I count myself super lucky that just from training, I have, a handful of like really good friends that I've made.
Fair.
I've made here in the couple of months that I've been living in Gainesville, and largely due to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Another thing that I had thought of was nice, just learning from training and, being throughout this whole experience was overcoming gender in general. I know we love to talk about sex and the implied nature of what we do on the mats, but it's something that's different, and it doesn't have any like set rule book to it. Like this is what's gonna happen, and it's not gonna feel weird or blah blah blah. And me coming from no previous sexual trauma like that, I feel like I was able to kind of just go in there with a clear mind, right? And just get to experience me being a female in a male's world, because that's what it is in martial arts. Even in the normal gym that you go to work out, it's like that. And for them to be the most inviting, the most
unless
welcoming.
You're on the ellipticals. that's like the girls' world.
Yeah. Or like the yoga room that's like on the top floor. Yeah. No, but and then to recognize that they're the most helpful and the most kind and compassionate guys that you could be around. It was a nice thing to overcome, thinking, not all men are bad.
Yeah.
There are some shitty men out there. There are some shitty women, but overall the general consensus is that we've got it together a little bit more. But it's nice to know that the guys on the mat, they've got it together as well, and we can kind of come together and have this just fun time and camaraderie. And
I mean, jiu-jitsu is definitely the most like physical contact that I've had with men in a non-sexual way. I would have to say. You usually are not like lying in between guys' legs, just like
naturally on your everyday.
Yeah. And I think that's been really cool too. I'm sorry to the guys who are listening to this right now, but I feel like an immense amount of pleasure when I roll with a guy and am able to beat him.
Yeah, you're able to beat him.
And I know that's probably hypocritical because we don't like when guys don't like to lose to girls or whatever. But I think just given the way of the world in which we live and the society in which we live, there is something that's very empowering about being able to go and get a guy to tap out. Because for me, that's where I see I can do this on the mat. That means I can do this off the mat as well.
True.
With someone who's physically bigger than me, who might be physically stronger than me.
And probably not in a gi.
Yeah, and who society expects to be able to beat me. I can actually turn the tables and beat them.
Yes.
And I think, we started this podcast wanting to hold space for women, but also anyone else who cares about jiu-jitsu. But I think this is a huge point or reason for people to consider adding jiu-jitsu into their lives, because we live in a world where so much is out of your control, where so many forces are influencing the way you view yourself, the way you view relationships, the way you view your role and your place in the world, that training in a martial art like jiu-jitsu gives you that control over your own domain. Like, people come into your bubble of space, you're going to show them who's boss.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a powerful thing to take out with you into the world. Even if you never get physical with somebody, you have that internal knowledge and awareness. So I think if people are on the fence about trying out any sort of martial art, trying out jiu-jitsu, if you're even on the fence about competing for the first time, about leveling up your game, going that extra day a week, I think for both Karina and I, sorry, I'm going to speak for you here and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think every time we've invested more, we've never felt worse about it. We've always felt better about making that investment and have felt that we've grown from investing more in our practice.
Albeit tough and physically demanding and time demanding, you're not going to regret it.
Yeah.
It's going to be something that you can learn a lot from. And these past 10 months we've learned a lot about ourselves, about others, about sports, about guys, about coaches, about peers, you know?
And so I think we want to end this just with a big thank you to everyone who came on this podcast as guests and made these talks extra insightful and filled with expertise that Karina and I on our own did not have to offer. Huge shout out to all the people who have acted as coaches for us over the past months, and I think perhaps even most importantly, all those people who we've trained with, who have met us on the mat and matched or even pushed us to match their dedication and focus and perseverance in training.
And we hope that you guys had a nice time listening to us and getting to know us a little bit. You know, we're not disappearing forever. This is more like a to be continued, to be, you know what?
Yeah.
Me and Justine, we've got longtime friends out of each other, so
who knows what the future's gonna hold.
Exactly. So all of our social medias will be intact. We're gonna try, you know, and post whenever we can, or maybe if we have a couple things that we want to share, we can get together and throw something else a couple minutes long, even if it's
might be a special January, February episode.
Right.
Before I hit the trails and once Karina's back from her international travels.
Yeah, so we're not gone forever, at least in this time sense. But we have appreciated everybody that's come along for the ride.
Yeah,
and
thank you to the listeners. Thanks, Dad.
For real. No, this has been a journey, and happy that it's closing, because it's been great exactly how it's been, and I couldn't imagine anything more perfect.
It seems like a nice tying up of things that, and I think it's just cool that we're both going on to such exciting changes and endeavors
and wanting to continue jiu-jitsu too. Like now we've picked up this thing and it's going to continue us for who knows how long.
You said at the beginning that on your way to becoming a black belt, so you
listen,
gotta go all the way to the top.
I have no problems with doing so.
Yeah, so thank you all again, and
whether it's on the mat
or off the mat, we'll be seeing you sometime in the future. Yay!